AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
If you've struggled with stress, balance, or burnout, and simply feel discouraged or even defeated, and if you're ready to move from force to flow and enjoy ultimate Zen success in your career, health, or relationships, then the Zen Success Show is for you. Your host, Carissa Sims, is an entrepreneur, corporate consultant, best-selling author, meditation teacher, and healer who has found her own Zen success. Here's your host, Carissa Sims.
Welcome to this week's episode of Zen Success. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jennifer K. Hill. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Carissa. Thank you so much for having me with you.
You're welcome. Well, I'll just have to say I was introduced to you through Humanity's team, and I've seen a little bit of your journey and how you've interviewed so many incredible spiritual teachers, and you have your own incredible entrepreneurial journey. So I'm really excited to dive deeper into who you are, what you're about, and your mission. Yeah.
Thank you, Carissa. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful. So let me share a little about Jennifer. She is an entrepreneur, executive coach, and speaker with over 20 years of experience. She exited her first company in 2018. As a recognized expert, she's appeared on KNX Radio, BBC News, ABC, NBC, Fox, and E! News, and also quoted in the Ladders and Glassdoor. In 2021, she co-founded OptiMatch, Om.app, an algorithm revolutionizing human connections in business by matching people using motivating factors. Fascinating. I haven't had a chance to check that out yet, but I encourage our audience to download that and look at that. As a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, Hill has hosted a 17-part series with Deepak Chopra and Hoffman entitled Conversations at the Intersection of Cutting-Edge Science and Spirituality, which can be found on Humanity's Stream Plus. She also hosts a podcast called Superconnections. Amazing. So excited to speak with you today.
Yeah, thank you, Carissa. I love Humanity's team. I think it was because of David Guillaume that you and I connected lately. I love David. He's been one of my teachers, and I was so excited when we were talking about the Global Oneness Summit this year. And I told them early on I was invited to do a panel with Bruce Lipton and Shamini Jan. And I said, guys, we got to get my friend David Guillaume on. He'd be amazing for your audience. So like, yeah, Jen, sorry, all our slots are booked. And then it was just so miraculous the way it came together with David's schedule and Humanity's team that you guys had one slot that opened up for David. So I'm excited for his wisdom to be birthed.
Oh, yes. And you're just, this is supposed to be about you, and you're so selfless talking about David Guillaume.
It's about, it's so funny. I was just doing this exercise with a friend of mine, Brandon Fong, who has a great podcast called Beyond Curious. And in it, he had ChatGPT kind of analyze everything I said. And one of the things it said is that I always give credit to where my wisdom comes from. And that's it. It's like, it's true, though, because I don't ever want to pretend that I'm the end-all, be-all source. I am only the woman I am today because of all of the profound teachers I've had, from Deepak to Bruce to David to, Alison Armstrong and so many others. And I wouldn't be sitting here if it hadn't been for the wisdom I've amassed from these teachers.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel that humility and inspiration in your heart. And I'm also, okay, so we won't talk about David Guillaume the whole podcast. Maybe I will send it to him. Shout out to you. My business partner is in New York, and we're launching this product it's healing art clothing. And it's all about awakening the sacred feminine, healing the womb space. And so she made me take Kabbalah. So I took Kabbalah 1. She's like, you have to if you're going to be my business partner. So that's how I got introduced to David. And yeah, exactly. And then I started following him, and it's just his wisdom and the Kabbalah teachings, dare I say, addicting.
Yeah.
So inspiring and grounded in ancient wisdom. And your interview with David will be our first content on Kabbalah, which I'm super, yeah, but because I feel like it's really important to have that ancient wisdom integrated into all the content that we already have on Stream Plus. What do you think?
That makes me so happy. And the funniest thing happened with all of that, because David's schedule is so busy. He's like the Joe Dispenza right now of the world for people.
Oh, yeah. He's so famous, right?
And so I messaged David about Humanity's Team. I'm like, David, listen, this is going to be exposure to maybe 1 million people, many of whom have never heard of your work, to your point. I was like, I bet a lot of them will have never been introduced to Kabbalah. And David's like, okay, Jen, I'm in. Talk to my publicist, my booking people, see if we can get me in. So I'm messaging with David's publicist, who puts me in touch with his booking person. And I'm messaging with his booking person, and I use Humanity's Team booking link. And I said, guys, here's the link. I said to David's team, here's the link. Choose 3 times, and then we'll coordinate on one of the times that I'm available, because I'm constantly traveling around the world. They didn't. They picked one.
Oh, yeah.
But hold on, it gets better. This was the most, you know how the more challenge, one of the Kabbalistic tenets is the more challenging something is, the more light it reveals. So here we were. I was in Paris Thursday night at 10 p.m. as I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I see that his team has just booked me for 8 p.m. the following meeting. But it gets better. Wait for it, Carissa. I had been invited. There's a wonderful guy who's running a healing platform, a Roman, who wanted to take me out for dinner with my husband at a Michelin-rated restaurant that he had booked weeks in advance. And so I had to call to cancel. So I'm calling him and I'm like, Roman, I am so sorry. We just got this guy who's like Joe Dispenza on an interview tomorrow. And he said, Jennifer, I got a babysitter. There's no way. I was like, listen, we'll reimburse you. My husband's sitting next to me in bed. We're like literally laying in bed in Paris. And he's like, well, can I take your husband out for dinner if you can't join? I just really want to thank you for all these introductions. So I put my husband on the phone with this guy, and he's like, of course I'll come. And I was like, wait, I have an idea. And I had a moment of divine inspiration. My best friend, who also produces a popular podcast, lives next door to the restaurant in Paris, because it would have been a 30-minute drive. I said, Joss, can I borrow your recording studio so I can record with David in the middle of a Michelin meal? So I kid you not, I sit down with them at 7 p.m. for this Michelin meal. I eat like 3 courses with them. I run to my friend Joss's house, 5 minutes walking distance away, record with her in studio for an hour, run back to finish the Michelin meal with them. And that was the context of how that whole interview came to be.
Okay. You are such in divine flow. Okay, I bow down to you. No, this is to you allowing and being in your divine feminine. That's all I have to say.
I knew David's
You
wisdom.
just let it go.
I was like, okay, I don't know how this is meant to be, but I was like, there's a solution. That's it. And this is funny. This is what my friend Brandon Fong's thing said earlier. It's like your brain can always find a solution where nobody else can. Like, what are the odds that one of my best friends, lives in Paris, 5 minutes walk from this restaurant that otherwise would have taken me 30 minutes to get there and back?
So you received 2 levels of abundance. I feel like that's super abundance, where you get like, oh, just overflowing. Like you have this incredible Michelin meal, and then you get to
review in the middle.
Yeah, but actually in Paris, did you tell David you're in Paris? Because I think he loves Paris.
I did. I know. We keep missing each other whenever we're in Paris. He is on a boat now with Deepak Chopra in Antarctica. And he's like, Jen, are you coming? And I'm like, because I suggested, I was like, we got to get Deepak and David together. So they're now going to be on a boat together in Antarctica. He's like, Jen, you got to come. I was like, David, my intuition has told me no. And I never get on a plane or train, Carissa, unless I'm given explicit permission. I talk out loud, as David taught me to do every day, to God, source, higher self. And I just got back from 30 hours to Bali, 30 hours back, all within 6 days. And all of this was divine. Even with the airports shutting down all over Europe because of a cyber attack, couldn't have been any easier. All my flights were easy, were on time, so I never set foot on a plane unless I'm given permission explicitly to travel.
Okay. Well, that could be good advice for all of us if you feel it in your heart, if you resonate with what Jennifer is saying. And okay, so not to harbor on this point, but I'm so curious of how you first met David Guillaume.
Well, it's a funny story actually. So a friend of mine, Noah Berman, shout out to Noah. I had been studying at the Kabbalah Center for about 5 or 6 years, maybe at that point. And my teacher in Santa Monica, they had temporarily opened a Santa Monica center and it was being shut down. So I was now teacherless and I didn't know where I was going to go. And I'm doing Shabbat in New York with Noah one day. He says, "Oh, there's this amazing teacher out of New York named David Guillaume. He's moving to Los Angeles. He should be your teacher. I'm going to introduce you." So he text intros me to David. And I called David one day and I'm like, "Hi, this is Jen Hill. And I was told you're going to be my new teacher." He said, "I don't have time for new students." I said, "Great, I don't have time for a teacher. So here's going to be our agreement." I said, "I'll call you 4 times a year for 30 seconds when I need you. You'll give me laser coaching and you'll be my teacher." Because I said, that's how I work very well with coaches. It's like, I don't like to spend hours going over something. I'm just very direct. So David and I became instant friends and he helped walk me through the sale of my first company, helped walk me through my divorce.
Oh,
And then he invited me to mentor his Kabbalah 1, 2, and 3 class, which was how to this day all of the mentoring and work that I do, I learned from him in that year of seeing how he trains people how to mentor. So
okay. So how long ago was that?
that was, I think we first met, it was 2016. I'm the one who got David podcasting. That was the funniest thing. David joined me for a podcast. I kid you not, I used to have a very popular podcast called Get Yourself the Job. And I think back in the day, David actually joined me in studio because it was a live studio audience.
Mhm.
And David said to me, "Jen, do you think I should do this podcasting thing?" And so then he actually started off with Weekly Energy Boost, and I was on one of their original episodes before he pivoted and did his own thing. So I remember David asking me, "Should I do this podcasting thing, Jen?" Yes, David, you should.
Oh, that's fascinating. So it has been quite a while. So you guys are very close and
Oh, we
wonderful.
just connect every now and again. I still text him, but he was instrumental in helping me through my divorce and finding my now soulmate. He was almost going to officiate our wedding if it hadn't been for his 4 kids. It was like a month out, and we wound up having another teacher officiate. But yes.
Oh my gosh, I love hearing that story. I'm going to tell my business partner too. I'm going to have her listen to this. So now we're going to move on. This is not about David. Okay, this is supposed to be about you. Where did you get back from? Have you been traveling? You mentioned Bali.
Yeah, I just got back from Bali, so it was actually my eighth international trip this year. I started living outside of space and time about 9 months ago, and it's just made it so easy. People say, "How do you go 30, hours to Bali and back just for 5 days?" And it's just that I don't relate to space and time the same way. So it was magical. I was invited to keynote at a conference there, and it was a lot of fun.
And what do you mean by that statement, living out of space and time?
So, my friend Don Hoffman, who's the guy who I did the 17-part series with Deepak Chopra on, Don has a theory of consciousness, that consciousness is fundamental. So we all know that space and time are not fundamental. It's been disproven by physics about 15, 20 years ago, but nobody's been able to replace space and time with a new theory except my friend Don did. He came up with this theory of conscious agents, and consciousness is fundamental. So imagine, Carissa, that you and I sitting here and we're projected into a theater of space-time, having the experience as the conscious agent Carissa and the conscious agent Jennifer. However, some conscious agents are not projected into the theater of space-time, which gives us dark matter and deceased people and all the things we can't measure and touch, right? So Don talks about this idea of space-time being a theater which we project ourselves into. And so about 9 months ago, I've had a lot of profound, deep experiences in my life. I normally spend about 2 hours a day in meditation and reflection. And in doing so, I started to realize that space-time is not literal, it's figurative. And so it's something that we all, and this is what science is working on right now in terms of teleportation and other things, when you begin to move outside of space and time as literal, then all of a sudden, I just look at it as time travel. When I'm going from Toronto to Bali, back to Lisbon, or wherever in the world I'm going, it's like time travel, and it doesn't even impact me in the slightest. I remember I was on a call with my mom on Monday when I landed and immediately hosted an 11-person dinner party that night. And my mom's like, "Honey, how did you just travel 30 hours?" I was like, "Mom, it's only because people treat traveling for 30 hours as though it's a big deal. But if you don't treat that as literal and it's figurative, then it doesn't matter."
Oh, interesting. So, in a way, it's a shift in perspective, or you just see traveling different? Because I I don't see it that way. I'm not as sophisticated and spiritual like that. But I grew up traveling because my dad lived in Japan, so I've just traveled like all over the world growing up. And I get excited. Every time I'm at the airport, I just feel a thrill, for traveling.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's to go back to your point about perspective, there's an analogy that I often use for people. Years ago, I had a team member, and this team member, I was very frustrated, and I had a story. She was a disappointment, right? And my business coach at the time comes in, and I'm getting ready to terminate her. And my business coach comes in and says, Jen, what if the reason that she's a disappointment is because you are looking for her to be a disappointment? And I was like, oh, how dare you? I had like a list a mile long of calls she hadn't returned, emails unresponded to, right? Like I had evidence to prove my point.
Yeah. And you're fired, business coach, by the way.
Yeah, Julian is actually my business partner now of the current company that we're building OptiMatch.
Oh,
He's great. Yeah, that's how much I love him. So
okay.
Julian says to me, what if it's that you're looking for her to be a disappointment? And he taught me something very powerful then. He said, Jen, most people don't realize that every second of every day we have 11 million bits of information hitting us at a subconscious level. Any guesses, Carissa, as to how many of those we're paying attention to at a conscious level?
One or two?
Very close. It's between 50 to 120 bits is what leading science tells us that we're paying attention to consciously. So that analogy that I use is that it's like we're walking around in an infinitely large pitch black warehouse
Mhm.
with a miner's helmet on. And all we have, that miner's helmet, is a little pen light. And that pen light represents the 50 to 120 bits of information at a conscious level we're paying attention to. So if I look over here to, it's hard to travel 30 hours,
Mm.
or this person is a disappointment, I will only ever see what that pen light illuminates because that's what I'm looking for. But if I look behind me and I say, life is easy, everything is always working out, sure, I can interview David Guillemot in the middle of a Michelin rated meal. Like that's where possibility begins, is it's all what you're putting your attention on. So that's one of my favorite analogies that I teach.
Mm. And could that analogy be like co-creating with the universe, or you feel like it's a shift in perspective to possibility?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that before, and let me sit with that for a second. So I think that it's and both. I think that what we're going to put our attention on, what we focus on expands. So wherever I'm pointing that pen light is going to give me what I'm having. But much like David talks about and the great Kabbalists talk about, is when we're consciously co-creating. David gave me a great analogy years ago. I meditate every day, right? And then you have things in Kabbalah like the Anabakoach, the 72 names of God, these great ways that the Kabbalists would draw down light. And I think it was David who said this to me. I said, well, David, I have 20 things I do every day. And he said, Jen, it's like if you imagine that all there is infinite light, and everything that you're doing, prayer, meditation, 72 names of God, Anabakoach, those are like plugs into the light. So the more, to go to your point, is are we consciously co-creating? If I'm not plugged into the light at all, if I'm just living unconscious and I'm not meditating, praying, reflecting, doing any of those things, I'm going to be able to shift my perspective. And in shifting my perspective, that in and of itself will have an impact. But then when I add meditation and talking to God, and I add Qigong or other things, then all of a sudden those things compounded allow me to be able to create things at a much faster level than otherwise I would if I was just using that little perspective helmet.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I like that visual. I was getting the plug-in with all of these different modules with the meditation and the prayer, 72 names of God. So, how do you utilize the 72 names of God? Do you say them? What is that practice?
Great question. So they have an app on the App Store by the Kabbalah Center, or you can
Uh,
on Tumblr online, you can Google any of them. One of my favorites is Sweetening Judgment. In fact, I'll even pull it up for you right now to share with your listeners.
oh, you're so passionate about this.
Yeah, so you can meditate on these. So you can meditate on the names of the 72 names of God. So you can look at them with your eyes, and then it gives you a short meditation and reflection. So say this one, for example, Sweetening Judgment.
Okay.
It says, every word we speak, every action we perform is a boomerang flung into the cosmos. all of these billions of boomerangs inevitably return to our lives, the positive and the negative ones. Now it gives you an insight. Though we're not aware of it, any negative behavior, even if it seems very minor, brings destructive forces into play. Whenever we speak in an uncivil or rude manner, whenever we cheat, lie, steal, insult, or harm other people, pop, we create a force called judgment. These negative forces are the unseen cause behind all the things that just happen to go wrong in our lives. It may take minutes, months, or even years, but eventually we must confront the consequences of our reactive deeds. Right now, obstacles are present in our lives because of the force called judgment, and judgments befall us to the degree that we inflict judgment upon other people. But Kabbalah says that our own words cannot serve as an indictment against ourselves. We cannot decree a judgment on our own being. Life, therefore, is cleverly arranged so that we constantly meet and befriend people who commit sins and errors similar to our own. When we judge them, our fate is sealed in that very moment. But suppose that we could refrain from judging friends, family, and undeserving foes. If this were possible, judgments against us would never come to pass. And then it gives you a short meditation at the end. Through meditation upon the sequence with genuine penance in your heart, you lessen or even revoke judgments set forth against you, and take an extra long moment of forbearance and compassion to others, so that these qualities of mercy are returned to you in equal measure. So that's just one example.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. I think I really needed to hear that because I'm dating right now, and I said something mean in a text because I felt like he wasn't understanding me, and I was like judging him for only wanting to text and not asking me out on a date. And now I feel like I want to go back and just apologize. Not that I want to date him.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. That's just what's coming up to me. But I could meditate on it and ruminate on this, ask for forgiveness. I don't necessarily have to go back in the physical world unless I want to, right? To apologize, to seek penance. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so what I would do is there's something called the Ho'oponopono prayer. Do you know about
Oh
that?
yeah, I know about that. I read Joe Vitale and I've practiced Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, so I would do first, I would say 5 or 10 Ho'oponoponos for him. I apologize. Please forgive me. I do it all the time. I literally have a list of 10 people I say Ho'oponoponos for
Oh
every
my God. That's
every
amazing.
day.
Well, I'm just laughing because I'm just like, thinking about all these like people that I might need to do this for, but also like with dating and things. But I think it's really healing to your point to get that energy of judgment out of your energetic field, right?
Yeah, David would be the first one to tell you this. I mean, the thing that makes you the sexiest human alive, single, whatever, sexual preference you have, whatever your gender is you associate with or otherwise, you want to become the sexiest human ever, love, accept yourself, and forgive everyone in your life. You will have people lining up and dates. David was so helpful for me in this because
Okay.
I was married with my ex-husband 14 years. And David gave me great feedback. One, the three things that David helped me with. One was, he said to me, I said, David, do I divorce him? Do I not? He said, Jen, you'll know it's the right time when you can do it from love, not fear. Anything you do from fear will cause you and the other person pain. Anything you do with love will elevate your consciousness. So I finally go through this process. It was actually 7 years ago exactly. I was in Bali reflecting, meditating, doing deep introspective work. And I come back and I decide to divorce my ex-husband. So then I put myself on dating sites for 24 hours. So David's mentoring me at the time, right? And I wanted attention. Here I was, 14 years, the same guy, and I just left him and I gave up.
Oh yeah.
I was
You're,
committed to find
and you're
myself.
gorgeous too, by the way. I mean, you're beautiful inside, but you also are beautiful outside.
Thank you. And dangerously, I posted a picture of me in a swimsuit, which was probably not the best idea ever, right?
I'm guilty of that too, but you take it down fast when you realize the type of guys you get.
Yeah, so what happened was, to your point, is that I posted this picture of me in a swimsuit and I got 1,000 responses. Like my phone, I wasn't even on Tinder. Like I had pages and pages of responses. And David and I got on a call that weekend. He said, Jen, get yourself off all dating sites right now. I said, but David, I want to find my soulmate. How am I going to find my soulmate? And really internally, I just wanted the attention, the validation. That's where I was
Yeah.
coming from. but I listened to David. And as much as it pained me, because it was nice, to have been with somebody for so long, you want to know you're still desirable to people in the world. But I did what David said. And I turned off I deleted the 1 or 2 apps that I was on. And then you know what happened? Through a series of serendipities, a week later, I'm in New York and I met my now soulmate. And that I wouldn't have had, and I just shared this with David on the show. It only came to me while I was at that Michelin dinner with my husband, my now husband, my soulmate, and the people I was at dinner with. I said, holy moly, I never realized it, that had I gone to New York and kept myself on the dating profiles, my schedule would have been so busy with other dates. I would have never met my now soulmate and had the wisdom to recognize it. And so I actually told David that live on the show.
Oh, beautiful. I can't wait to hear that interview. That is amazing. And I just wanted to share a synchronicity that I was married to my ex for 14 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, here's the funny thing. So you want to hear another funny story? So years ago,
Of course.
David.
It's juicy.
Yeah, wait for it though. It's so good. So David's mentoring me. 7 years ago, I'm in Bali. I'm debating. I'm doing all the things, cleansing my soul, calling in my soulmate. I come back. What's the first thing I do? I went to Agape. Do you know what Agape is? It's a
Yeah, I sang in the choir. I went there for 10 years. Yeah, I
Oh, yeah.
lived in there.
So
Yeah,
you know Michael. So the
yeah,
Rev, Michael Beckwith, Michael
yeah.
was my teacher. He's the one who brought me back to spirituality. So I go up to Michael before services, and you may know he broke up and divorced Ricky, his longtime wife.
I do. I do know that. Yeah, because he was with Ricky when I was there singing in the choir.
Exactly. So we probably even met at Agape years ago. I would go to Agape every Sunday. So fast forward, here I am just back from Bali. David's mentoring me in the midst of all of this. I get back and I stopped to see Michael before services, and I was like, Michael, I respect you so much. I've been coming to Agape well over a decade. I know you just divorced Ricky. Do you have any wisdom for me? I'm considering divorcing my husband. And you know what Michael said? Michael said, Jennifer, it's only in Western cultures that we put so much emphasis on being with one person for our entire lives, where actually, if you go to certain villages and areas like Africa or indigenous cultures, you come before the village elders and you sign a 7-year contract. And that
Oh,
contract, isn't this wild? And I've told so many people the story since. So you sign a 7-year agreement, and then for those 7 years, you commit to learning whatever lessons you need to learn. You just commit, give it your all. At the end of 7 years, you come back before the village elders and you reflect on the lessons you've learned. And you ask yourself, are there still more lessons for me to learn? And if not, then you complete the contract and you go your separate ways, kids or not. But if there are, you sign another 7-year agreement. Well, the beautiful synchronicity, this came back full circle. Michael Beckwith and I were speaking on the same stage at this week in I Am Creation, and I told him this story, and I was like, Michael, do you remember telling me this? And it was funny because I used to say it was Africa, and then Michael said, no, Jen, it's indigenous people. He's like, it was like Native Americans, but it was just so funny that it all just synchronistically came all the way back full circle.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I was thinking, I've never heard of that practice in Africa, but yeah, he's right. Indigenous. Okay, interesting. But I still didn't know about that. And so why you're coming back to the 7 years is because 7 times 2 is 14. Is that how you're correlating it? Okay. Yeah. And it's interesting because in your heart, you did it with love and you felt that your contract was done with your ex. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just felt we were complete. He brought so much light to my life and taught me so much, and I'm so grateful. I would not be the woman I am today without the lessons I learned with him. But I think that if even my now husband, we're coming up on close to 7 years of being together, and so it's so beautiful. He knows though. He knows that it's a renewal, and we've kept our relationship so fresh since the moment we started dating because there's no taking one another for granted. There's like, hey, we got to keep working on every day being as light and lovely as the first day we met.
Oh, that's so romantic. It gives me hope because I'm in the vibration of you finding your soulmate. I know it's been 7 years, but it's still wonderful because you smile like you just met and you're so like infatuated and in love. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I want that for everybody. This is my life's work. I often get asked this, Carissa, is what is my purpose? What is my vision? And my dream is that every human being has a deep, meaningful relationship with themselves, others, and their purpose. And my best friend gave me the best advice when I was going, despite the advice from David and Michael and everybody at that time, I will always remember my best friend who I'd known like 20 years saying to me, Jen, you deserve to find someone who will cherish you. though first you need to cherish yourself. And that's the advice I'd give to anybody out there who's single. Go cherish yourself. When you love and cherish yourself, your light goes on and then you become available and people can see you. But until we don't cherish ourselves, we tend to attract what we are. So if we're unkind or speak to ourselves in a rude or unkind manner, as much as we do it externally, we also do it internally. And when we can learn to love, cherish, and accept ourselves, then the sky's the limit and we get to cherry pick whoever our soulmate is.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And out of curiosity, what was your keynote speech in Bali?
Oh, it's so funny. I was almost just going to bring that up. It's called Listening for the Spark of Light in Everyone You Meet. So that's what it's all about. Is basically 9 months ago, I was doing a meditation with a friend of mine, Keith Hodges, here in Portugal. And Keith wanted to gift me a session. He's this profound healer. And so he says, hey, mate, he's like this lovely Brit guy. He's like, what do you want to work on today? And it was just around the US elections. And there was just a lot of divisiveness in the world at the time. And I said, I've had the same reoccurring nightmare, Keith, since I was a little girl, that I had to save the world. When I was 5 years old, I had a dream. I was working with superheroes to save a school bus full of kids. Fast forward, I'm in my teens, and I have a dream. I'm floating on a piece of earth looking back and realize I didn't save humanity and fulfill my mission. And Keith says, okay, mate, sounds great. Let's work on that. So Keith starts intoning and chanting, and whoosh, I drop out of space and time. Dead sober, 10:30 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and I just dropped out of reality. And then I start hearing the universe laughing, and the universe is laughing, Carissa, and it's like, you are so cute. There is nothing and no one to save, and there never has been. However, your only purpose, and the purpose of every human being, is to remember that spark of light in yourself. And once you remember that spark of light in yourself, then to reflect in and listen for all the people who have forgotten that they're sparks of light. And that is your purpose.
Oh, that's so beautiful. You live in Portugal now?
Yes, I've been here about 5 years.
Oh, incredible, incredible. Do you know about the Hollow Movement event? I'll have to send that to you.
I know Laura who's putting it on.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Okay, good. So you know it's happening there.
I'm trying to help her with connections here for that.
Oh, great, great. When you were saying that, it felt really important and profound. And I just glanced at the clock, which I don't normally do, 11:33 my time.
Oh, beautiful.
133, yeah. So that's important for our audience if you resonate with that. So I would love to hear a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. What was your first company and what inspired you to start it?
It was an accident. So I left college, or I left high school at 16 and went straight to college. And by the time I graduated college, I was graduating early. But because I only took advanced placement classes in the short period I was in high school, I go to graduate. 3 months after I walk with my class, I'm planning to go to law school. I get a phone call from my college, and Carissa, it was like something out of a movie. My whole life has been like, you couldn't have written a movie about my life.
Well, maybe you will write it yourself.
Yes, look out for the book. There's a book called A-Hole that will be coming out in the next year or so that's about how I transformed and transmuted all of this stuff. But that's a very different story. So fast forward, here I am. I've graduated early. It's 3 months. I've already moved to LA. I'm getting ready to go to law school and submit my applications for rollover applications. And all of a sudden I get a call from my school. Oops, you didn't graduate. You're missing a class from high school, U.S. History 101. Now, to be totally clear, I had taken and passed Advanced Placement European History 101 or whatever it was, but I never took U.S. History 101 just because I skipped ahead and went, and they said, sorry, we can't give you your diploma. You have one of two choices: come back to school for a semester and take U.S. History 101, or take a 2-hour oral exam on a 1,000-page book, U.S. History, pop quiz, with the Dean of Social Sciences. And I was like, okay, I'll go for option B. And so I did that test. But because of that, I wasn't qualified because of when you could apply for law school for another 6 months to apply. So I had to post my resume on Monster to figure out what I was going to do in between. And I got 3 job offers. One was to be an enterprise rent-a-car manager. The other was to work in lending. And the third was in recruiting, which I didn't even know what a recruiter was. And I took the recruiting job, and within a few years, I'd broken every record at the company I worked at. And I thought I was a hot little piece of something or other. And so I decided, after I've made millions of dollars for this company in a very short time, was making great money, I said, I'm going to go build my own company and be a world famous speaker. And I knew nothing. I'd never read a business book or anything. And I failed miserably. I went from making good six-figure salary, great money, to completely and utterly failing and making $5,000 the next year. Well, in the midst of all that, a company that had heard about me, and I was well known in the industry, they knew about me in recruiting, and they begged me to come back as a partner. So for a few months, I worked with them as a partner, but let's just say our vision was misaligned on what mattered to us. So my ex-husband, again, one of the many things I'm grateful to him for, he said, Jen, look how many clients you have in 3 months being back. Why don't you just go open your own recruiting company? So next thing you know, my best childhood friend buys me a book, How to Build a Small Business for Dummies. I'm off to the races. I open my own recruiting firm. People just start asking to work with me. And 7 years later, we sold it to a big accounting firm.
Oh, amazing. Okay. And you're so spiritual. Like, so you have this business side, but when did you find, you said Michael Bernard Beckwith helped you find your spirituality?
So yeah, I talk about this in the book, The Recovering A-Hole. That's the
Okay.
opening story, is that
Oh, I see.
yeah, so I went when I was about 16 years old, I went into a 7-year spiral of drugs, alcohol, and 3 suicidal attempts, and just hated myself, and 10 years of bulimia. So I was throwing up 10 times a day, very nearly died twice from suicide attempts, let alone drug overdoses and cocaine and different things I was doing at the time. And fast forward, I did Landmark at the time, and some of the people I was studying Landmark with introduced me to Agape, and so that became my first foray back into spirituality. I basically lost God, lost myself, lost all sense of self, and so I studied with Michael for about 7 years, got introduced to Kabbalah and Transcendental Meditation around that time, and so for 13 years now, I haven't missed a day of meditation.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. So what type of meditation did you start with? Like what they do at Kabbalah or
Transcendental. So
oh,
we
trance TM,
started,
yeah.
yeah, I started doing TM. So every day I do TM meditation as my first meditation, and then I typically do 2 or 3 other meditations throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge commitment for you. I mean, for anyone, but I'm just saying I'm impressed that you meditate for 2 hours a day.
And I need it. People say, why do you do it? And I say, so I don't destroy myself in the world, because I hated myself so much. And you know what came to me while I was at lunch with a friend in Toronto 2 weeks ago is my friend was lamenting why those of us who do light work in the world and are bringing a lot of light, why there's so much darkness equally in our lives. And I said, well, Poppy, I said, I want you to imagine it like this. Most people live in this bandwidth. Imagine you have this much light and this much dark, and that's the most light and darkness they're ever going to have. It's equal and opposite. Then you start to reveal this much light, then you have that much darkness. That has to be equal and opposite. And then you want to reveal this much light and this much darkness. There's the equal and opposite, just like a pendulum. So you have to have that balance. So for any of us who are doing the work, I think that's why I can go as deep as I can now, is because I've seen the darkest depths of my soul and despair. I've gotten to on the precipice of death or near death. And now all of a sudden I can go to the equal amounts of light.
That's amazing. Did you have a good relationship with your parents? I mean, because it's kind of unusual to start college at 16. Actually, my friend who I was just with yesterday, she did. She started at 16. So it seems like you're a bit of a genius. you know, but like she is too, she's a CEO also. Um, but I'm just curious about that. Or was your relationship okay at home? And then you just happened to be really smart and going to college young.
Yeah, my mom and I are really great friends now. My dad just passed away last year, and we were on great terms when he passed away. My dad and mom drank their whole lives, and I'm so proud of my mom. She's been doing incredible, and gave it up after my dad died, and I'm so proud of her. And it was definitely, they were the perfect parents for me. If you've studied Kabbalah, you know that they say we choose our parents, and I can
Yeah.
totally see why I chose the perfect parents for me, because my mom challenged me. My mom is, you think I'm smart, my mom is ridiculously a genius. We actually play New York Times spelling bee every day together, and we don't stop till we get to Queen Bee. Literally every single day, we're trying to see, like, sometimes my husband will join in, we'll all see who can get the panagram first, or if there's 5, we work on getting all of them. And so
Okay.
is ridiculously intelligent, and we challenged each other when I was a kid. And then my dad, speaking of filters, you know how I was talking earlier about the filter that we might listen to somebody through, I'm a disappointment, I'm this, I'm that.
Mm.
I realized when I was 25 years old that my whole life I had listened to my dad through a filter of he was a jerk or he was an asshole, right? And so fast forward, here I was at 25 and I had this profound aha moment. And I went in the garage to talk to my dad at his house and I said, Dad, I love you. And I want to apologize for listening to you like you've been a jerk. I want to know you as a human and I'm committed to meeting the real you. Is that something you're open to? And my dad just opened up and shared his soul. He was a firefighter. He said, Jenny, he said, I started drinking. So he and my grandfather, I never knew this. I was very, very close to my grandpa. I didn't know my grandpa was the first one to hold me when I was born. And that he and my grandfather were in a pissing match my whole life. And that my grandfather was the one who introduced my dad to hard alcohol, that put my dad on this thing of drinking vodka his whole life. And so here I am in the garage having this conversation with my dad, and he tells me how he's had to pull decapitated kids out of cars, how he's had to run into burning buildings. And I would hear him scream in agony at night when he'd be sleeping. And so
PTSD.
yeah, so what happened that night, Carissa, was instead of being afraid of my dad, so for years we all had a story, my whole family had a story that he was a jerk, despite the fact that my mom and he were still married and together. And so that night my dad starts drinking. Now normally I would have cowered or been angry with him or frustrated, but instead I put on a lens of unconditional love. And that night my dad started crying because he got that even when he was drunk, I could still love him and not treat him like he was a jerk. And that blossomed into a beautiful relationship. Now nothing ever changed. My dad never stopped drinking. But from that day on, whenever I was with my dad, and if he was drinking when I was around him, which he was at night every day after 2, then I just would love him unconditionally, and it completely transmuted our whole relationship. So by the time he died on February 25th of last year, I was just at complete peace and I had nothing left unsaid with my dad, and I can still talk to him on the other side.
Oh, that's incredible and so healing and amazing. And it's so interesting because my friend had a similar experience with her father, but she didn't have the other piece where you came in with unconditional love, you know, and healed your relationship through that love. It's just incredible. So thank you for sharing. It's beautiful. And tell me about your next company you founded recently in 2021.
Yeah, it's called OptiMatch, Om.app. And what happened was, remember the business coach who I told you taught me how to talk to my heart, the great guy Julian. So, and Julian's the one who taught me how to see that this woman I worked with was in a disappointment. So after he helped me sell the last company, Julian came to me and said, Jen, why don't we create an algorithm that mirrors your intuition for matching people? Because that's always been my gift, is I have a sixth sense, a spidey sense of who's going to get along with who. And I said, shoot, can we do that? I'm not a tech person. And he's a software engineer. Speaking of geniuses, I'm lucky to have a lot of geniuses in my life. And Julian's a genius. And he's like, yeah, we'll just come up with a mathematical formula that mirrors your intuition. I was like, amazing. Yes, please. So we
Sounds like AI. It sounds like you AI.
yeah, it's sort of, yeah. And so
Sort of, but it's different. It's
yeah,
programming.
exactly. It's a programming, it's a mathematical formula. So we started off, you need to test something like this. You need to test an algorithm. So we created a marketplace of 100 therapists, healers, coaches from around the world that we personally vetted every single one of them. And then we had 144 completed sessions, got to an 87% satisfaction rate. And then we got used at Mind Valley, on Necker Island. We've been used in a variety of ways. I get brought in. One of my favorite things to do is to work with corporations, and I get brought in sometimes to do consulting and help them better understand one another and their teams. So I love getting to do that. And anybody can try the free version that sits on our website, om.app/survey, and you get a complimentary report. Our amazing team developed it, where not only can we use it to match people, but you get a sentiment analysis tool that tells you how you're motivated.
Oh, interesting. And then how do you've just personally vet the healers because I'm a spiritual healer as well.
We did that, but then, so what I should backtrack. We started off doing it that way. So we created this whole website and everything to do it. And remind me, I can introduce you offline to the guy who wanted to thank me for referring him all the healers, bringing it full circle back to
Oh,
David and the guy Roman. That's why I was in Paris with this guy Roman, is I had referred him all 100 of the healers that we had worked with because I loved, he's creating this platform now. What happened was, in 2022, the first time I ever went to pitch this website with all these vetted healers, I was on a call with an investor and he's like, I don't give a shit about your marketplace, but what I do care about is if you're as good as you say at matchmaking, you need to make this available for all of humanity. So we pivoted away from doing it just for the healers, and then we created the algorithm to be able to be used across all different industries. So now, like a healing platform like a BetterHelp or and like Roman's platform, for example, my friend, they could use our platform and embed it, but now it's an algorithm. Instead of being one marketplace, it's an algorithm that can be used in any marketplace anywhere around the world. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. I want to dive deeper into that. So, what about podcasting? When did you start podcasting?
2016, actually. So that's when I was doing the show called Get Yourself the Job that David Guillaume was on. And
Okay.
I was just very lucky. That first show I ever did, I used to get about 50,000 downloads a month, and it just grew and grew. And then when I sold that company that was related to that, because then I was no longer in recruiting, then
Yeah.
I started doing the series called Regarding Consciousness. And Regarding Consciousness is where I interviewed Deepak, Chopra, Don Hoffman, Bruce Lipton, Greg
Uh-huh.
Graves, all the greats. So I had the privilege and honor. I've had Neil Donald Walsh on and many others. And so then I did that one for a few years. And then I've been playing this year with Superconnections because my dream is to super connect people to themselves, others, and their purpose. So I've been playing with that this year.
Is that your podcast?
You've all been mine, yeah.
Yeah, Superconnections. Okay, I wasn't sure if they hired you, if this was a company that hired you, because I know, I mean, you could be a host for hire, but maybe you're too busy.
No, I have done. HeartMath hired me to do their biggest event of the year. That's actually
Oh,
how
good.
Grayson and I became friends. Is HeartMath was doing their first ever online summit during COVID, and so it was like a 600-person summit. And then Greg and I were like, oh, we're long lost friends, and and then it all just kind of emerged. So sometimes I do paid hosting gigs and
Oh,
speak
okay.
around the world. Yes.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure you're amazing at that. So, how did your first interview with Deepak go? Were you nervous? Were you a fan of his?
I didn't know his work. The funny thing is,
Ah!
I knew literally the first book I ever read of Deepak's in my life was the book that I was interviewing him on. That was it. But I knew we would be friends. I just know,
Okay.
I get this sixth sense and this knowing, like I feel an energetic overlay of people and energies, and I can just sense when my soul has known somebody before. And so Deepak and I, when I first got invited to do a panel with him, Don Hoffman, and Dean Maurer from UC Irvine, my alumni, my school, that's how we did that. And then I called them and I said, oh, I saved Deepak and Don a spot on a new show I was on a network called Awake TV at the time. And that led, ironically, oh my God, back to Kabbalah. So here is the funny thing. So it's December 31st of 2019. I've been invited to do this panel with Deepak and Don on January 9th of that year. And I got the balls of steel. Now, I've had a new TV show, and I use that term very lightly, on Awake TV, which is a brand new network which barely even existed at the time. And I called UC Irvine and I said, tell Deepak and Don I saved them a spot on my new show. Now, that was a very broad stroke because there was no real show, no network. So Deepak's team calls me a week later and they said, Deepak will see you in studio. He'll have you pick him up in this sort of a car, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have a studio. I didn't even have anything set up. I didn't even know what to do. So I called David Guillaume and I said, David, I need a studio. Can you set me up at the Kabbalah Center? I know they have a studio. So the first show I actually ever did was because David Guillaume set me up with a studio at the Kabbalah Center. And that's where we did our first show.
Oh, wow. I love how that all ties in together.
Yeah, it's
What
cool.
is what is Zen success for you?
It's a sense of inner peace and knowing and not needing to prove anything. I think success can often be measured in monetary things, people, things we've accumulated, though true success is from the inside out, where you have a sense of inner peace and calm no matter what the world throws at you. And so when you can cultivate that, just like my best friend said, cherish yourself, then all of a sudden, no matter what storms of life may be surrounding you, you can find that peace in the middle of the storm. And that to me is true success.
Mm, that's wonderful. Well, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and hearing about your entrepreneurial journey, your spiritual journey, and I'll put your website and how to connect with you in the show notes. Thanks for being on the Zen Success Show, Jennifer.
Thank you, Carissa.
That's it for today's episode of Zen Success. Head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show and share with friends. Be sure to head on over to ZenSuccessShow.com to help you on your Zen success journey. And join us on the next episode. May you find your own Zen success in life.